It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is Stevie Rachelle doing a cover of the Genesis classic from I Can't Dance with the title track right there. And on the other line, Chris, Stevie is out in the parking lot practicing his breakdancing moves. So what's going on there, Stevie?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
We're good. Where are you at? Are you out and about?
I am on the 101 freeway south, just passing through Encino into Sherman Oaks.
All right. Out there in the valley.
In the San Fernando Valley, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, I was just out there a few weeks ago for NAMM and drove out through there. And it's always fun to go out in Southern California, but that's just your backyard every day anyway.
Yeah, when you say out here, I mean, obviously NAMM is nowhere close to the San Fernando Valley. It's about 70 miles south. So
yeah,
did
but I did.
I drove LA County or something?
I drove up through there just visiting friends and doing a little chasing around.
Where were you? What part of the San Fernando Valley?
Well, I went up the 101, then I went up through Pear Blossom Highway. I went up to the high desert, just kind of driving all around.
138. That's 138.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, up and around that area. So, well, here you are. You're back on the Classic Metal Show, and you got some new stuff to share with us.
Yeah, well, not new stuff, but best stuff. So, time for another piece of product from RLS Records, which, for the record, in April we'll be celebrating 25 years since I started my own indie label.
Wow.
And the latest release is my third solo disc, BesTUFF.
Nice. Well, Stevie, obviously the business is completely different from, when you first got into it, but you've been able to maintain your label and continually sell products by hustling. Talk a little bit about, in this day and age, for a guy like you, how difficult is it to A, get people to buy something, and B, get people to just pay attention to actually know that you have something out?
Well, it's exactly what you said. That's a classic word from the 70s, I think. Hustle. You gotta move, I mean, and, to the listener, Stevie has a record label. It's funny, like all those years ago when we started this, and I say we, it was really me, but, my cousin was very involved in helping me, and, the band people, guys in the group and things were involved in the whole process, but it was really my vision and my baby per se. But from the beginning, I said, and I remember reading this from like a rapper who started doing stuff independently. When people look at the back, or they hear a song, or they find out so-and-so's releasing a new record, they don't go, is it on Warner Brothers? Oh, it's on Two Sky Records? Nah, I ain't buying it. No, I really like the song, I really like the band, but if they're not in Capitol, if they're not in Geffen, if they're not in Warner Brothers, I'm not buying it. And, so at one point you put that logo on there, I contacted the UPC company, I got a barcode, I've barcoded everything for 25 years, from CDs to cassettes to VHS to DVDs, LPs, and a lot of people, not a lot, maybe 20 years ago, some people, they wouldn't have known the difference if I was going to a 10th-story mirrored office in downtown LA, or, Sunset Boulevard. Hey, there's Stevie's record label, It's been my garage, that's the reality. Everything I've made has been distributed out of my home or out of my garage, per se. And, getting people to buy it is not easy. Whether you have a .com, that doesn't even really count across the board. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, because there's so much competition.
Right.
Hey, I'm on Facebook. Oh, I hate Facebook. I only do Instagram. Oh, okay. Well, I'm on Twitter. Oh, I don't do Twitter. Fuck that. I only do, Instagram. I only do this. Well, I'm at Spotify. Oh, Spotify sucks. I only listen to music on iTunes. It's like, so there's 30 places that people can go and congregate, and whether they're going to see your stuff, it's really hard to say. So you just got to be a little bit of an attention whore, and I've been that over time, and posted here and posted there and buy these and buy those, and hey, if you want Cat House and Headbangers Ball swag, I got that too. So, you got to do what you can do to get it out there,
Sure.
Well, Stevie, we were having a pretty lengthy discussion here on the show just before we brought you on about this big debacle with Pledge Music. And,
right.
a guy like yourself who's obviously very involved with the business side of the music industry as well as the performance side, I'm sure you're aware of the Pledge Music problem where basically all the money is gone. And Chris and I were having a discussion that if a band, and one of the most notable ones here recently, at least in our genre, Queensryche, basically said, well, Pledge Music stuck us for X amount of dollars, or we did not receive the money that we were supposed to get. And I know all you guys invested or paid for various products, but we can't give them to you because they didn't give us our money. Do you think Queensryche is responsible for fulfilling those fans' orders?
I would say yes. I mean, here's the thing: the people didn't say, "Hey, I want the new Pledge Music fucking email sent to me with some kind of an agreement in it." People are buying Queensryche. They're buying, Eddie's bass guitar picks, or they're buying the drummer's snare drum from the studio session that you got to pay $100 for, or you're paying for the lyric sheets that they're going to write out and autograph, and that's their stuff. That's not Pledge Music stuff. And I've never been a fan of these things. I've been outspoken and against them over the years, and I've taken shots at some people who used it. One that comes to mind, and I hate to always bring up LA Guns, but I will. I mean, I love Phil. I like Tracy. But I remember at some point Tracy did some kind of a thing that said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do cassettes. I'm going to do a whole cassette release." I think it was for like League of Gentlemen or something. And of course, if you could raise $7,500, then he would make cassettes for everybody. And of course, it didn't fucking happen. And who knows if one person did it or 50, but all those people donated $20. Oh, I want a cassette. I want a cassette. Oh, I want a fucking copy of the recording. It's just, I think at some point that platform got abused because there was bands that didn't need to do that did it. And it was just a way for them to go, okay, well, we don't want to spend our own $50,000 on the record. I mean, Queensryche makes a pretty good chunk of change. I'm guessing they're not playing for under $10,000 a night, probably 20. So let's say, how about this, guys? How about you do one weekend's worth of shows and you put all that money together and you make a record? Not look for like, well, if Frontiers doesn't give us $50,000 and if so and so doesn't give us $50,000 at Deadline Cleopatra, well then we'll have this third party banker.com do it. And all the fans give us the money. And then, when we get around to recording it, we'll send you the record in a year. I think that's bullshit. RLS Records is independent and as small time as I may be. Since 1994, I've probably released, I'd say, upwards of 50 products. I've never once asked somebody, hey, pay for this today and I'll send it to you in 6 months or a year. If anything, I did, hey, pre-order now because they're at the plant. We're going to be available in like 10 days. Not like, hey, send me the money and I'll do the recording and then I'll, do artwork and get it mastered and all that. I've never done that, and I think that's kind of a chicken shit thing to do for a lot of these bands.
I just call that wimpy logic there, Stevie. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Hamburger today, exactly.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. But thankfully, with you've always been, people may like you, people may hate you, but you've always been a straight shooter when it came to the business aspect of it. And I can say this as a shopper with Stevie Rachelle. I've bought stuff. In fact, the hat I'm wearing right now is my my Tales from the Porn hat, which I bought from you,
nice.
2 months ago or something. And it was one of those deals. I bought it from you. You literally sent me a photo and said, "Okay, here's the package. It's going in the mail." And like 3 days later, I had the fucking hat. It's
right.
There's a difference between honest business and again, I'm not shitting on Queensryche per se, but I agree with you 100%. I cannot fathom that a band like Queensryche that has a label deal, they're on Century Media, so they're signed to a label. There's no and they make 20. I know the numbers are between 22 and 25,000 a night per show. There's no reason that band needs to be crowdfunding a goddamn thing. They just don't need it. It's stupid.
And it doesn't cost, in today's world, it doesn't cost $200,000 to make a record.
Right.
And when somebody goes, oh, it's this and that and quality, I won't name the names because I won't throw anybody under the bus. But there's producers out there that were making platinum records in the 80s and 90s who right now will mix your songs for a couple $100 because nobody's giving them $50,000. Hey, we need a new Sweet FA produced. So you want $50,000? Sure, I'll go tune knobs for a month and take $50,000. And then the label spends $150 on the record, and then there's $30,000, and let's put the guys up in some hotel in Sweden and record it out there or wherever they're going to go. There's none of that. Those guys could do pre-production, rehearse the songs, hire a producer. Hey, guy, we'll pay you a couple grand a song, or we'll pay you this, and rent a studio if they don't have it to do the basic tracks. As far as all the overdubs, the guitars, all those extra bells and whistles and vocals, 99% of that can be recorded in a garage or a bedroom or an apartment.
Sure. You're saying you won't throw the names. I'll throw a name out there because they promoted it. I have some friends in a band in Pittsburgh named Ashes to Ashes, and they didn't really go anywhere. I mean, they were big in Pittsburgh, but that's it. And on their last CD, they hired Beau Hill to do their record. Beau Hill, how many tens of millions of records does that guy have? But he's doing local band from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, because Ashes to Ashes didn't pay him $10,000 or $20,000 to mix their record. There's no way. No, they didn't have it.
No. They paid him. I only know because Ed's my business partner in some other stuff. But they only paid him like $1,000, maybe $2,000. They paid him a couple $1,000s to do some work, and that's not shitting on Beau at all either. It's he had his time, he did great work, but that time is over. It's just the nature of the beast these days.
And a lot of the bands that still want to go to this studio or that studio, it's like you're paying for the leather couch, you're paying for the fish tank, you're paying for the parking spot out front of a door, and there's a Mercedes there that the owner of the studio has, and then there's some pretty blonde, milfy 40-year-old answering the phone and going, "Oh, you guys, your Chinese food's here. Where do you want it?" You're paying for just to feel like you're a rock star for the day or for a week or for a month.
Right.
And at some point, that's thousands or tens of thousands of dollars that's just being pissed around. I mean, sure, Axl's not going to record his bedroom, and neither is Motley Crue. But Queensryche, with respect, they're not at that level. I mean, the Warrants, the Skid Rows, the Great Whites, the LA Guns of the world. All those bands, they can record. Blue collar style. They really can. I mean, and it's not just because that there's no money to go around, or let's just be cheap. It's because the reality is technology with the equipment today can do so much more than it did before. And all those big boards, all those 72 channel boards that look like they're from NASA, most of that shit, you can't even use it anymore. Everything is digital, and you have, a board that's 3x3, and you can do more stuff with it. 3 foot by 3 foot. You can do more stuff on that board today than you could do with a whole room back in 1990.
I agree with you, Stevie. It's in this day and age with technology the way it is. I mean, obviously we do this show, Chris, obviously in Cleveland, I'm here in Chicago, you're out there in LA area, and we're doing this show worldwide.
Right.
It's costing us nothing. Next to nothing. So anyway, Stevie, tell us a little bit about these recordings that you're doing. You obviously played the Genesis cover. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, it's crazy. This song came about in a weird twist, and you guys will get a kick out of this. That's actually a song that I did with Justin Murr. And what happened is Justin had contacted me years before he even did Rock and Skull. He had been doing his label, Liberty and Justice. You guys have heard of that, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've had Justin on the show many times, and obviously you and he went head to head over this whole Rock and Skull thing. Right.
Which, that is what it is, and that's in the past. But, pertaining to this song, Justin contacted me at one point some years ago and said, hey, I'm doing this record. It's all 80s guys, but I'm having them do all, like, obscure 80s songs, but not hairband songs. And it ended up, he asked me, I don't remember what the offer was, but there was a couple of different parts or songs that popped up. And at one point, I ended up doing I Can't Dance by Phil Collins and Genesis. And, like, Kip Winger did Stayin' Alive, and I want to say PJ Snare is on there, and he did like a U2 song, and it's a bunch of 80s hairband guys, but we're all doing like songs from the era that weren't hard rock or hairband-esque, Right. And so I had done that song for Justin, and it was on a compilation he put out called the Cigar Chronicles, and it didn't really go anywhere. He sold some copies, but it kind of went by the wayside. And then at some point, of course, before we ended up feuding, I asked him. I said, "Hey, I'm going to put this solo record together. I want to use that song, but I want to recut some parts." And at one point, we agreed. He said, "Go ahead, use it. It's all good with me." So I actually recut the vocals. J.K. Northrup was the guy that produced the original track and did all the guitars. Mm-hmm. So I got together with him. He sent me the general track, and then I cut vocals with Adam Hamilton, and then I had Chris Laney mix it in Sweden. And he added some little trinkets and bells and whistles to it, and some weird, I don't know, congas or whatever the fuck he put on there. And so it's kind of a remake of a song that I had previously had recorded and released through Liberty and Justice. And I don't think it was 10 years ago, but I think it was more than 5.
Right. Sure.
And so it wasn't like I didn't wake up one day and say I want to do a Genesis song.
Right.
Even though me and Phil Collins probably have similar hair at this point, I was like, I thought it was kind of an odd song, but when J.K. Northrup and Justin sent me the track of what J.K. did with the guitars, wow, it kind of sounds like Disturbed. It was very heavy and aggressive and modern. So I was like, okay, I'm down. So let's do it, and we did.
Now, what about the rest of the music that's on BesTUFF? It's have you been working on this for a while, or are these older tracks, or what are these tracks?
Yeah, it's basically, and I don't know how much you guys remembered this or paid attention, but in 1998, I put out my first solo record. It was called Who the Hell Am I?
Right.
And it's kind of brown and it looks almost like a country record, and it's very stripped down. Mm-hmm. I was going for like Tom Petty, John Cougar, kind of Americana, very acoustic driven. That record I did with Michael Raphael, and that's 21 years ago. Then a couple years went by, and I started doing a second record. It's called Synth 66. It's purple, and the title is referencing my birthday. I've been around since 1966. So that record, I did some songs with Nick Nolan, Gilby Clarke, Michael Raphael again. And then, and of course, now this was while Tuff was on hiatus in the late '90s and early, into 2000. So I did 2 solo records back to back. And then a couple of years went by, and then Tuff started playing around. And then a couple more years happened, and I said, okay, I'm going to start working on some new solo stuff. So I started working on a new solo record, which was to be my 3rd solo record in like 2004. And then I had a daughter, and I had a son, and I discovered Veins of Jenna, and then I had the Metal Sludge thing with Sean and I. We kind of had our falling out, and then that got a little crazy and got legal. And next thing you know, I got all this other stuff happening. So the solo record was kind of like, okay, this thing's going to have to wait a little bit, Right. And, the kids never went away. They're still here. Didn't adopt those out yet. And the Veins of Jenna thing had a pretty good life. That went, 6-7 years. And then by that point, Tuff's playing around and Shameless, and then this Tales from the Porn, and basically everything just kind of, the solo stuff kind of was on hold. And now it's all these years later. I had a couple tracks laying around, and I wanted to release them. And I figured, why not just do a best of? Put the first record and, most of the second record and a few new tunes. And essentially the new release is called BesTUFF. It's 20 tracks. So it's most of you, I think it's 8 tracks off the first record and 7 off the second, and then a couple of new ones with a couple of mixes, and that's how we come to this point.
Perfect. Well, it's kind of a compilation record then with some bonus tracks.
Yeah, and here's the thing. As we know, physical product has declined in sale for several years now. So even to make a record is a lot of work. It's money, and how many will we sell? And there's got to be at some point, how much goes into it, mastering, artwork, actually physically getting the product replicated and packaged and designed, and then how many do we need to sell to make it break even? So I used to do 3 to 5 pieces a year, not just Tuff, but a solo record, Wild Side, Veins of Jenna, Kings of Sunset Strip, the Metal Sludge record, another solo record, a Cheesehead record, a Nitro record. I used to do a lot, but at this point it's kind of filtered down to maybe 1 release every year, or I did a couple of years ago, then didn't do any for a while, and so I kind of pushed this one through, and now I need to sell a few hundred units to make my money back.
There you go. Well, Stevie, I understand that you've taken on a new line of work, that you're doing some Uber driving. Is that true?
That is true. That is absolutely true.
So, I drove a cab for about 2 years myself when I was in between gigs, and, you definitely meet all kinds of people from different walks of life, and some oddball things happen. And since you're out there interacting with maybe the public that you normally would never come in contact with, do you have any good stories to share in that regard?
Well, first let me say this. I won't say Uber or Lyft. Let's just say I'm doing rideshare driving, because if I tell a story or two, we don't want it to be where suddenly one of these companies goes, hey, somebody sent us this story about you having crazy sex with a passenger, and we can't let you drive anymore.
So this is RLS. This is RLS cab service.
That's right.
Yes, or as I go, everybody at some point somebody nicknamed me Stevel, so I took up a new identity, and I'm Stuber now.
Nice.
Stuber or stupid, but no, there hasn't been any sex, but there has been some interesting characters. I did pick up a porn star at a porn set, and just because I don't want to get them in trouble or have the company complain, I won't name who I picked up. But I picked up a known porn star from a set, and it was kind of funny because I live in the Valley, and obviously anybody that follows porn, I know Chris doesn't, so you would know this.
No.
But the San Fernando Valley is the porn capital of the world. So I pull into this warehouse, and then, I'm following the GPS, and there's this little tiny chick in about an eighth of an outfit standing on the curb with a duffel bag. And I'm like, is that my passenger? Of course, I was kind of excited. And then next to her stood this humongous guy, and I'm like, oh, she's with somebody. So I pull up, and they had 2 bags, so I popped the trunk, the hatch, and I said, so it's both of you? And then the beefcake goes, no, it's just her. Make sure she gets where she's going. Kind of like a little bit of a preface to, don't try anything stupid, dude, just fucking take her home, So I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
And this chick got in my back seat in a mini skirt, and I if she hadn't been wearing panties, I would have seen her liver because it was fucking wide open, or esophagus or the other. But yeah, so I drove her. We started chatting. We did exchange phone numbers. We've since become text buddies. She lives in Florida, and I'm awaiting her return. So in case she needs a ride, I'll give her a free ride the next time.
So did you recognize her just because you knew who she was, or did you just recognize her from her vag?
I was going to say, can you put your legs behind your head? I'm not sure if I know who you are. I didn't know her, but when she told me her name, it sounded like a typical porn name, because I think most of them do anyways. I mean, but then I Googled her, and, then I could see her esophagus and everything else after I found her on the internet, so.
Nice. Well, Stevie, I know when Neely was driving, one of the things that he encountered regularly was the drunks that were either on their way to the bar or on the way from the bar. Are you running into any of that?
Yeah, well, I've had to put my foot down a couple times, and it's like when you first start, it's interesting how it works, I mean, and I've been a passenger in Uber, in LA, not much as I live here and I got a car, but if I'm going to LAX, for instance, and I'm going to be out of the country for 2 weeks, I don't want to leave my car at some airport,
Right.
So I'll Uber to the airport, and I've Ubered in Dallas, and I've Ubered in Brazil and some other countries here and there. But, as a driver, you obviously have to be respectful, customer comes first, this and that. But I had some chick, now this is not a drunk situation, but it's about a month ago. It's Sunday, the Patriots are playing the Chiefs, okay? Right. It's overtime. And I've been driving on Sundays and just listening to the games, right? So it's overtime. And I hit the button. This chick gets in. I'm like, hey, how are you? How's your day? Oh, I'm tired. I've had a long day at work. And I'm like, okay. And now I hit confirm. I hit accept. And now we're driving. And I see it's like 11 minutes to her drop off. Not very far, 11 minutes.
Okay.
And we're driving. And I always listen to talk radio or sports. And I'll also adjust so the radio's only in the front and only on the driver's side. And it's barely there, just so I can hear, Not like it's blasting through the car. And she's like, oh, can you please put some music on? And I'm like, well, I'm a big sports fan. It's the playoffs. And I said, the winner of this game gets to go to the Super Bowl. So I don't want to change it right now. And she goes, are you serious? I've had a long day. You're supplying a service to me. I said, well, my service is that I'm driving you. And I said, I am serious. I don't want to change it because I want to listen to this. I'm a big football fan. I go, this is the playoffs. It's literally overtime. And I'm kind of pleading with her, like, it's overtime. I want the Chiefs to beat the Patriots, And she's just like, I don't care. I want to hear music. You need to change it. And I'm like, at this point, I'm a couple months in, so I'm a pro at this point. And
Right.
I've got a few buddies that are Uber drivers too, so I'm like, I just nonchalantly pulled over into a McDonald's parking lot, and I said, ride's over, you need to exit the car. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? I said, the ride is over, you need to exit the car. She goes, are you serious? I'm reporting you. I go, what are you going to report me for? Not putting on a radio station? I said, ma'am, I said, you're only going a few minutes. I said, you asked, I told you no, nicely, and it's not like I'm, I didn't say this, but I'm thinking, it's not like I'm blaring Cowboys from Hell through the whole fucking car, it's like, it's, basically a radio playback of the sports game, so it's just, an announcer or two. And she's like, you need to take me somewhere safe. I go, this is safe, it's the McDonald's. So you need to please exit the car. And it's like, she got so angry and so mad, and she was already becoming a bitch the first 2 or 3 times she wanted the music and said she had a bad day. And I'm thinking, okay, this chick's about to be an ass to me. And she was. And at some point I'm like, I ain't missing the fucking end of the overtime so she can listen to music. And then what, am I going to fucking start flipping through channels? No, I want something different. It's like, fuck off, bitch. Hit the bricks.
Yeah, it's a Big Lebowski situation. Man, I hate the Eagles. Could you change the radio station?
Right. Yeah. So I had her, and then I had a Me Too movement episode.
What? How did that go?
So, okay. So this is a couple months ago, and I'm new. I'm only like 2 weeks into this, 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm driving, and it's Friday, and it's in the morning, and it's rush hour, and I pick up a black gentleman in West LA, and he's a big guy. As I'm pulling up to the corner, he's kind of waving his arms and kind of rocking back and forth, and he was big. He was like, Fat Albert, a big black guy. So he gets in the car, he's got a bag, and he starts to open the front door. He wants to go in the front. I said, you want to? He goes, I want to sit in the front. And I was like, okay. So I slide the chair back so he's got space. And I came to the realization pretty quickly that I think he was a little slow, right? So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'll handle the guy. It's all good. I said, hey, man, how are you? Where are you going? He's like, I'm going to work. I was like, okay, cool, And his name was Jeremy. So now Jeremy's in the front, and I'm trying to make some conversation with him as well, to make him feel at home, even though I could tell he was a little slow, but I wanted to make him feel like I wasn't treating him like anything less. I was, hey, let's talk football, whatever. So he's
Right.
in the car, but it's also a shared ride. Now, when you do shared ride or pool, now we have to pick somebody else up. So I said, Jeremy, we got a ring. We got to pick somebody else. This is the shared ride. He's like, yes, I know that, sir. I was like, okay, no problem, buddy. Just let you know. So I pull up, and now I'm in front of the house, and you hit the little button that says you've arrived. And when you do this in Uber and Lyft, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a timer. And during rush hour, the timer's set to 2 minutes and starts going backwards. If the customer is not to your car within 2 minutes, that's essentially a no-show. You can hit cancel, and then you get paid even though they weren't there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she's not here, and I it's a minute's going by and a minute and 20, and that doesn't sound like a long time until you're driving, and every time you pull up, you got to wait 3 minutes for somebody. You're like, where the fuck are they? So I hit the button, and I call her. She answers the phone. I'm like, hey, this is Steven, your driver. I'm down front. Oh, okay, hang on. I'm just locking up. Right, I'll be right there. I'm like, oh, you're just locking up? And it's an apartment building, and who knows if she's on the 5th floor towards the back. So now the timer's already down. I could hit cancel and pull away, but I decide I'll wait it out. And now I see her come out of the apartment, a beautiful little Asian girl, like 18, 20 years old, just China doll looking. She runs to the car. Oh, I'm sorry, I had to feed my dog. I was like, okay, no problem, this and that. She gets in the back. So now we're driving, and the thing beeps again. And now we got to pick up another guy. I've got a small car, but you can pick up 3 people. And if you do pool, you got to pick up 3 people. So we go to pick up the third guy, and just before his pickup, Jeremy had to stop. We were dropping Jeremy before I picked up the third guy. And so now I pull the car over and I pop the hatch. Now I also open the door and kind of help Jeremy with his seatbelt off because, again, this guy's a little slow and he was kind of fumbling around. I wanted to help him, make sure he's taken care of. Here's your bag, sir. Shake his hand. He's off. Now the other guy gets in, and again, I engage this guy because he's wearing a Rams jersey, and we're suddenly broing it up on the football talk. And out of nowhere, I get, I'm running late. Can we hurry up?
Oh,
it's
boy.
the little Asian chick in the back. She's yelling at me to get going, And I'm like, well, I had to help Jeremy out of the car. He had a bag in the back, and, me and my buddy were just talking Rams here. I'm just trying to, diffuse her because she's kind of getting all hot. And so now we drop the next guy, and she's got the longest way to go. Her ride's like 35 minutes. It's Saturday, or like I said, Friday morning, 9:30. So of course we hit every fucking red light.
Right.
And every red light, I hear her in the back. Like the heavy huffs,
Yeah.
And finally we pull up to her place of employment, and I said, do you want to go in the front or the side? I'm asking her, you want to go in the front door or the side door because it's a big building? This is fine. So now I turn to her as I put the car in park and put the flashers on, and I said, honey, I can't control the traffic. Don't call me honey.
Oh,
Don't
God.
stare at me. Quit looking at me. I'm uncomfortable. And I said, listen, you took a shared ride. You were late coming to the car. It's a 40-minute ride. We had to pick up other passengers along the way. That's what you get when you take the pool. I said, I can't rush you to work. And she's like, quit calling me honey. Quit staring at me. And so at this point, I drop her off. And then an hour later, I get the email from the company. Dear Mr. Handsetter, you made this customer feel uncomfortable. Unwarranted, advances. Calling people sweetie and honey is not acceptable, and this and that. And this whole, lecturing kind of, I'm like, oh, my God, am I going to get fired? And I was livid. I was like, I want to go back and find this little girl and strangle her by her neck, And I was like, I was saying honey the same way I would have said to a little kindergartner who couldn't buckle their shoe, like, here, honey, let me help you buckle that, or, the kids on the playground, like, okay, here's your ball, honey, it went in the street, I'll get it for you, to the kids, whatever. But this chick, she went from, please wait for me, I'm running late, to hurry up, I'm late, to don't look at me, don't stare at me, and don't call me honey, and I'm uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding. And it really was kind of freaky how it went from 0 to, a letter from the company writing me and telling me about what I did wrong or what, the customer was made to feel uncomfortable with. Well, then I wrote them a nice little letter back and got in contact, and they at some point understood my position, and they were like, we can even tell by the GPS that you did arrive and that there was wait time before you accepted, and based on the pin and all that other stuff with GPS. So I'm like, this chick was just a little entitled brat, and again, if I could have thrown her over the overpass and got away with it, I think I might have done it.
Fuck these crybaby bitches with their Me Too horse shit. The last thing she really wants to do is be treated like a dude. Because if she acted like that and was a dude, you'd punch him in the fucking face and tell him to shut the fuck up.
Well, and it was like, I said, honey, and I said, honey, I can't control the traffic. I said it like that. I wasn't like, hey, honey, it wasn't a sexual related honey in any way. And when I turned to her, I wasn't trying to address her like in the rear view mirror. I wasn't driving anymore. I was parked. So I turned towards the back seat as to acknowledge her face to face. I said, hey, I can't stop the traffic. Stop looking at me. Stop staring at me. Oh. And then, this whatever she said to them, it was pretty annoying that I got that little letter. But for the most part, I've had a good time. There's been a couple of sour apples in the bunch, but
Right.
you know, I've kind of learned how to handle them, and you know,
Do
we
they
have
s-
just as much
do
right
they-
as they do. You know.
Is it set up so that now if she calls for a car again, like you could know so that you could avoid her stupid cunt ass?
I'm under the impression that if somebody even rates you bad, like if there's when you drop them off, they also have the ability to rate you 5 stars, you know, down to 1 star. If somebody gives
Right.
you a bad rating, I think the algorithm automatically picks it up that okay, this person was not happy with the driver or vice versa, and so
Right.
there's no longer a match. You know, I think
Okay.
it's, you know, like Tinder. If you say unmatched, you're unmatched.
Well, sounds like you're having quite an experience there, Stevie. So why don't you let the fans know where they can get this new BesTUFF release, and bring us up to date with anything else you got going on this new year, 2019.
Well, BesTUFF is available. You know, you can find it on eBay, on Amazon. Both my accounts it's available there. I'm sure at some point it'll pop up in Demon Doll Records because Lance over at Demon Doll sells all my stuff. If you go to the Metal Sludge site, there's a store there through Big Cartel. You can buy it there. You can email me or Facebook me direct if you want to send a PayPal or a Venmo. You know, I do that as well. And you know, next week I'll be in Jamaica because Tuff is on the Monsters of Rock cruise this coming week. So we'll be flying down to Florida. Myself, Mr. Todd Chason, your guys' favorite local guitarist, Billy Morris, will be on guitar. And then Jimmy Lord will be playing drums with us on this trip. So we'll be on that cruise, and I look forward to it. You know, it'll be our third one. We've done one on the East Coast and one on the West, and it seems like the one on the East Coast was a little warmer. I think the water's a little cleaner and a better sail in the Atlantic as opposed to the Pacific was a little bit more choppy and a little bit more cold out here.
Well, hopefully you don't end up with a dead bass player.
Jesus.
Oh, you're talking about
Jimmy Bain.
Bain died on the Def Leppard cruise, right?
Yeah. Too soon?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not. Yeah. I mean, how bad would you feel if Chase died on the cruise?
I wouldn't be happy because he's my favorite chef in Cleveland. I'm a fat guy. Fat guys like our chefs.
Chris was most concerned with the food output first. Like, what? My favorite chef died.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, Neely, you don't know this story. Stevie, you probably remember this, but I remember it plain as day. When we were all together at the show in August, Stevie comes up to me and we're talking and we're talking health and whatever, and he goes, so you trying to do anything to lose some of that weight? I was like, no, nothing. And he looked at me like, what the fuck, dude? You looked at me just like horrified.
No, I wasn't horrified, but hey, you know, just looking out for you. You know, at some point, you know, it catches up with all of us. I know that right now I've been saying to myself, I need to lose 10 pounds before I get on the ship, so people don't go, hey, I didn't know Vince Neil was singing on the cruise, and then everybody goes, no, that's not Vince, that's Stevie.
Too funny.
All right, Stevie, it's always a pleasure having you here on the Classic Metal Show. As always, the door is always open. You can come back anytime you like, and even if you just want to shoot the shit.
Yeah, so the CD's out. We're going on the cruise. I'm driving some Uber, some Lyft, having some fun. I'm sure at some point there'll be some more news from Shameless and/or Tales from the Porn. Metal Sludge it's still lit up and happening. Just not at the extent it used to be, but that's not going away anytime soon. But that's all I have for right now.
All right.
Isn't that enough?
I think, yeah.
I'm overwhelmed.
my kids are amazing. My daughter's a freshman in high school, and she's a writer for the school newspaper, and she had her first published piece about a week and a half ago. And I'm sure if anybody looked at it, they'd be like, "Wow, she should teach her dad how to spell and edit and write properly." She's awesome. She's nice. Doing great with that. And our son is an 8th grader, so next year he's in high school, and that's the most important thing that happens on a daily basis is being a dad.
Right.
I can't relate, Stevie. I just got to live vicariously through your experiences.
Right. Well, Chris can. He's got kids.
Yep, I do.
He does. All right, Stevie, I'm going to close out this interview with Lolly Rock. What's the story here?
Shagadoo Lollipop. Neely, have you heard this song yet or not?
I don't believe so, no.
Oh, wow. Chris, you've heard it, right?
Yeah, I heard it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, you can let me know later what Neely's facial expressions are as the song plays. This song is pretty. It's pretty interesting. It's nothing like anything I've ever put out. It's very poppy. There's a keyboard solo, just so you know, Neely, and it fits into the category of my stuff with the hairband song, Dear Janie Lane, the Cheeseheads with Attitude parodies. It's got some unique stuff going on. So I all I can say is I like the song. I've had a great reaction for the most part. People like, wow, that's really awesome. I don't know if that's genius or stupid, and then there's people that think it's the most horrible thing they've ever heard in their life. So, but I'm used to hearing that response with everything I do.
Well, you'll probably get that response from Jackal in the chat room.
Right. I don't know who Jackal is.
Oh, you know him, Jim Bartek. You met him at the Summer Bash.
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let me know what everybody thinks of Shagadoo Lollipop. It's basically my ode to music throughout the years, and it's very poppy, though.
All right. Well, we'll live with it. All right, Stevie, be careful out there. As the old saying goes, don't take any wooden nickels, whatever that means. So.
Yep.
All right, Stevie, we'll talk again.
Okay, guys. Thanks, man. Talk to you then.
All right. See ya.
Later.
Bye.